Okay, imagine you were Swedish. Terrible, I know. Now imagine that you were also a drug addict. Hard to imagine. But if you did, then you'd get Afraid of Monsters. A Half-Life mod that's basically a suspiciously long acid trip whilst also being a horror game. The mod was released in 2005 by Swedish developer Andreas Rongberg, who has also made Cry of Fear.
What the fuck?
You play as David Leatherhoff, a drug addict that, after taking some of his fen pills, blacks out and has a couple of spooky nightmares.
Shut up, bitch, Nikki.
The game first takes place in the Markland Hospital, which should be somewhere in Sweden, and the game plays a cutscene introducing the environment where you're trapped in, immediately sending a grim and eerie tone. Every location is unsettling, drenched in a grungy, grimy aesthetic that makes you feel like you need a shower after playing. The creepy models and assets only amplify this feeling, making the world feel a whole lot worse, but in the best way possible. During our nightmare, we explore this dark void before waking up back in the hospital, where we immediately pull a knife out of our pockets like we're British or something. For some reason, the whole building is empty, but once we find the gun, that's when the hallucinations start to appear.
What's the Wi-Fi password?
These guys are Twitchers, and are basically just a retextured Half-Life zombie. If they move as if they were on Duracell. Their strange design and unnerving twitching makes them pretty creepy. There are even multiple variants of them, making the world feel more alive than if they all had the same skin on. Other Half-Life enemies also appear in here, but I don't find them that interesting. Except for the Bullskid, which wears the Mario 64 metal cap for some reason. To move forward, we need to cut the building's power. Sounds simple, right? Well, this is where we hit one of the game's biggest problems, the flashlight. Since this is essentially just a Half-Life mod, it retains the same flashlight mechanic as that game. And if you've ever played Half-Life, you know how absolutely fucking garbage the flashlight is. And the hospital's maze-like design makes it really easy for you to get lost in.
This shit.
Markland Hospital is an alright introduction to the game, but it could have been better. Speaking of things that are better, I briefly mentioned the dark void we explored during David's blackout. But as we progress through the game, these surreal dreamscapes return. They are called dream sequences, and they're pretty scary, turning reality on its head and really messing with its players. Take for example the moments where you have to follow red balls in a pitch black void, or explore eerie hand-drawn environments covered in cryptic messages. Some parts are outright disorienting, like this hallway that suddenly spins, forcing you to grab a ladder or fall to your death. Or this layout that changes the moment you turn around. It's an experience that generally makes you feel like a Swede tripping the fuck out. Moving on though, David's nightmares continue to grow more intense. We move from city streets to sewers and even the New York Jew tunnels. Exploring them, fighting monsters and figuring out what to do was honestly fun. But some sections were also pretty scary. One part that comes to mind is the strange station that initially looks safe enough until doors begin to seal behind you and a bunch of zombies ambush you. However, the real nightmare is the Bleeding Spectre. It's a retextured alien grunt that flickers in and out of existence while firing homing eyeballs at you. They're almost impossible to see and will absolutely wreck you before you even know what's happening. David hops into a car and speeds off into the woods. And honestly, this part of the game is pretty mid. The forest is dark, but for some strange unexplainable reason, the developer thought,
You know what would be funny? Invisible zombies.
this fucking sucks! There's nothing fun about it. It's just plain terrible. This is also where the story throws any kind of logic it had out the window. David gets inside a mansion, which is pretty cool, but why? And the progress we need to enter this chimney thing. The problem? It's locked. And how do you unblock it? What the fuck did I just say? And how do you unblock it? Well, obviously you have to board a boat, sail into the middle of nowhere, break into some random guy's house, press a bunch of buttons, return to the mansion and enter the chimney. Do you see what I mean? However, things then take a surreal turn. We are thrown into another dream sequence, referencing a lot of environments and scenes we've faced throughout our journey. It's clear now. David's nightmare is reaching its climax. And as we move towards the light, expecting some kind of resolution, suddenly we are back. David is lying on the ground, surrounded by doctors. We've never left the hospital bathroom. The entire journey, everything we went through, it was all a hallucination. The doctors desperately try to wake us up, but it's too late. David dies of an overdose. This might have been crazy just like Crazy Frog, but this isn't really where David's story ends. 2 years after Afraid of Monsters released, the creator launched Afraid of Monsters Director's Cut, a massively improved version of the game that basically changes the whole experience. Let's rewind a bit. The hospital section has been completely redesigned, and it looks a lot more like an actual hospital. But it also keeps a lot of its major flaws, like its confusing fucking layout. The new flashlight also doesn't improve things. For some reason you now have to find batteries to keep it running, and if you run out you'll be stuck in total darkness. The city on the other hand has been completely reworked. While some of the old sections have been remade, the majority of it is brand new, featuring redesigned environments that feel more like an actual city rather than the older, blockier version. Enemies have also undergone a complete transformation. The halfway skins have been replaced with original models that better reflect David's nightmares. Like the bull squid is no longer just a bull squid, and in my opinion the biggest glow up goes to the head crab. The original design was honestly pretty fucking ugly, but the new version is a major improvement. However, one of the biggest additions in Director's Cut are the new weapons. Like the knife is no longer your only melee option. You can choose between a hammer, which does more damage, but doesn't attack as fast, and the fire axe, which is just cool. There are also a bunch of new pistols that kind of feel the same honestly. They have the same sound, same firing speed, and almost the same design. You can also choose between a shotgun or an Uzi. And the forest has got a slight improvement. While it's still mostly pitch black, there are a lot of new sections. My favorite has got to be this big empty field. Once you approach it, a bunch of zombies will reveal themselves and ambush you. This is a great use of the forest darkness, but everything remains the same as the old version after this. Director's Cut also has multiple endings. But how do you unlock them, you may ask? Well, as you progress, you'll eventually reach this section that splits into 3 different paths, each path leading to a unique ending. But when viewed as a whole, they come together as one larger narrative. Here's what I mean. The first ending shows David surrendering himself to the police and getting arrested. The second has David being interrogated by an officer, and the final is the darkest, with David being locked up in an insane asylum, supposedly resetting his character. These endings present a different perspective on David's actions. Unlike the original, where everything was just a dream leading to an overdose, this time everything is real. The monsters we fought were merely hallucinations of real people, making David out to be a murderer.
I thought you were stronger.
However, there is also a secret fourth ending. Each path contains one note with a piece of code on them, and in one of the dream sequences, there's a room where you can type the full code on the walls. By doing so, you'll be transported to a level where, at the end, you have to fight a creepy version of yourself. The addiction. Every attack we land on it also hurts us. We can defeat the addiction by grabbing a spear and repeatedly striking it down, and by doing so, we wake up in the hospital, surrounded by doctors. Unlike the original, this time David wakes up and everything was all just a bad dream. Despite its many flaws, Afraid of Monsters is an incredible half-life mod that still deserves to be played to this day. Some parts may feel a bit tedious, but the atmosphere and psychological horror elements make up for it. If you're a fan of survival horror or love seeing how creative modders can get, I highly recommend giving Afraid of Monsters a try. Anyways, that's all from me.
Why? Where was I? Ugh. What is it now? Wait, what? But I thought I killed you. There's 2 of you. These guys seem strong. But not stronger than me. Let's see if you know this one. That ended way quicker than I wanted it to. Now how does this work?